Castlevania Season 2 is better than Season 1, point blank. If that's all you need to hear, then go ahead and watch such a great season, right? Now, is it better than the original series? To me, no, but I felt like the fight choreography was better, as well as the visuals too. Like, it was just amazing in this season, right? The story and everyone's arcs, though, I felt like the more satisfying stuff was in the OG, honestly. That's how I pretty much feel. But overall, like, this season here, like, it was good. It was good. Now, is this season crazy when it comes to character development? No, not for everyone. The one who truly went through such, like, real crazy change was Maria, and she was unexpectedly one of the characters that I really enjoyed watching throughout the season. So let's look at the facts. Let's look at the Carfax. Annette has already eaten the humble pie in the first season. Richter isn't such a crybaby bitch anymore here, for the most part. Alucard is just Alucard, cool as fuck. Edouard is just lying in wait, waiting for his chance to strike. Elizabeth and Drolta had like an origin story in this season, but in all honesty, I just didn't give a fuck. Like, it didn't really change anything how we felt about them. It just shows that, they're evil, and how they, how everything was led up to this point in time, like, today in the events of the show. So it didn't really change anything, which is fine. Like, I don't think anyone was really expecting humanity from these fuckers, but like, just seeing their origins, I'm like, oh, so they were always horrible people. That's great. I mean, like, Drolta herself wasn't initially bad, but like, immediately as soon as she turned into a vampire, she's like, I'm gonna fuck things up. I'm like, oh, well. Olrox is a really cool, like, supporting character, but he never really stepped into the limelight. It was plain as day that he was going to help out in the end, and that Mizrak would join him as his vampire, lover, I guess. That's enough vagueness, I suppose. Like, I'm about to talk about spoilers, so, yeah, leave now if you don't want me to spoil the shit out of you. So, yeah. You guys gone? All right, sweet. So, primarily the objective for everyone is to kill Elizabeth, because she's the vampire messiah, right? Can't really do that as they don't have the power to do so, and try to find other parts of her that she's looking for to become more powerful, which are the parts of Sekhmet. And she's trying to get all these parts together so she can create the Eternal Night, which is very bad, right? Very, very bad. It kind of reminds me of Dracula in Marvel Rivals, but I'm just gonna leave that. I'm just gonna leave that alone. But a lot of what the earlier episodes had the characters doing was everyone reeling from the loss they had took in the previous season towards the end, right? And this is where they made all the decisions on what to do, where to go, blah blah blah, right? Alucard, Annette, and Richter will be going to get the body of Sekhmet, because it's separated between, I'm pretty sure, the blood, the body, and that's all they knew. But apparently later on, like, there was the soul. I mean, fucking of course. But yeah, they went out to go find the body, and they fail at that because plot needs to happen. While Juiced and Mizrak are tasked with taking care of Maria, who is fucking pissed, right? So at some point, she goes ahead and meets Tara. And honestly, now that I think about it, like, there was really no point in them acting like she was never going to see her daughter again, or it's going to be really hard or whatever, right? If she can just leave and just talk to her daughter, like what the fuck. But Tara does begin to show her how to use her summons differently, and she summons more angrier, powerful, like, creatures due to her strong emotional state because of what the fuck happened, and using them to kill the abbot, who at that point couldn't even do shit about Elizabeth, even if he wanted to. That was his whole plan. Oh, I'm just gonna use all these night creatures to betray her, and use these night creatures for God's use and so on, which is very flawed, of course. But he's doing it all himself. It's not the church that's telling him to do all this. It's just him being a fucking idiot, and that's that's fine. We've had plenty of idiots out there, right? So let's talk about the abbot and the whole church thing, right? So a lot of people, especially in the last season, didn't like how the church was represented in Castlevania, the show, about people not being shit and causing more misery for others unnecessarily, right? Church or not. Church or not. The church isn't perfect. We have real life examples and examples in the damn show. While I do understand people's frustrations, but let's remember that the abbot did all this himself. In the OG series, these are the same idiots who felt so safe from monsters, and they excommunicated their own protectors, the Belmonts, because they felt like they weren't needed anymore. Because, yeah, they're fucking idiots, right? And they went ahead and was so pompous and, you know, so arrogant. They thought, hey, let's just go ahead and just burn people just because, right? And it caused a massive issue with Dracula, right? But back to the show. Yeah, like Maria was like, you know, she summoned a fucking dragon, right? And it kills her dad. She was so fucking pissed. It was really cool seeing, not gonna lie, the visuals and everything, really fucking cool. The abbot, I'm about to say dad, the abbot, brings Drolta back to life earlier with the night creature machine. He does this, like, I don't know, like it's a little bit, I'm like on the fence about having that as a thing, right? I was thinking Erzsébet was going to go ahead and revive her with her, you know, Egyptian god powers or whatever the fuck she had, right? But no, they used the night creature machine, and I'm like sitting here looking at it like, so in the entire history of, like, you know, the people that create these fucking night creatures and stuff, I'm blanking on the name, right? They never thought to put a vampire in it, and you know the dangerous repercussions that would come from it. Maybe they kind of hinted at it because the abbot was like, no, maybe you should let her rest and so on. And then, you know, Erzsébet was like, fuck that, fuck no. But yeah, it's I if they could do that all along, technically, then it would have caused even more issues. But, you know, things happen. It's whatever, right? I'm not gonna look too deep into it, but it's still a little bit weird. It's still a little bit weird. When the abbot does die, something like Mephisto or some being takes him away, and Aurochs is onto its presence, right, throughout the entire show, which is interesting. But at the same time, by the end of the show, we know nothing about this thing still, so we're just looking at it like, oh, it's a thing, cool. So when Maria kills her dad and she realizes the creatures she summons are too dark, and when Juice saves her and gets his magic back and begins teaching her how to draw from a different source of power while using her magic, she uses her positive emotions to bring out strong, more tame creatures to help her out, which is really nice. I really like it a lot. I really like how Juice is really helping the next generation this time and not fucking disappearing, right? Annette herself has been sort of freaking the fuck out due to seeing so many souls, and it's revealed that Sekhmet has a third part at this point. The soul stuck in the spirit world, you know, feeling all the other parts, you know, doing fucked up shit, and yeah, and Annette needs to go help her out. She's the key to everything, of course, right? Let's see. While Richter in Alucard fights Erzsébet, like, this is like during the big old battle towards the end, right? Because I almost said the abbot, Annette has to like go into like the avatar state or some shit, right? She has to go ahead and meditate, and put her soul in the spirit world and, you know, figure things out, right? And Richter and Alucard is fighting Erzsébet, her forces, and Drolta too. Like, you know, there's a big old fucking brawl, big old battle between the revolutionary army and the fucking vampires, right? Soon Juice and Maria join the battle against Erzsébet, and they are like full blown jumping her, like it's like Dragon Ball Z out in this. No, it's like JJK when they're all just jumping Sukuna at the very end. Like, holy fuck, right? Annette does get possessed by the spirit of Sekhmet, which tries to weaken Erzsébet to help the fight with her, right? Which is cool. And honestly, the fight choreography is so fucking clean against her. It's incredibly fun to see and watch. Ultimately, they do weaken her enough to where the spirit was just about to take away the two other parts of her, but Drolta takes her away into the sky and basically says, you ain't the Messiah, you ain't shit, I might as well do this shit myself. And she takes it to task for herself and abandoning and killing Erzsébet, which, shocker, right? You know, it's like throughout this whole show, you can tell like Drolta she is a slave to her ambition and idea of Sekhmet and everything. She's not really loyal to Erzsébet. She's loyal to what she wants her to be. And if she can't be that thing, if she can't be Sekhmet, she would just throw away Erzsébet, which is, you know, it's plain to see, right? I'm not crazy, right? Like, it's plain to see. So yeah, she gets super strong, and everyone tries to take her down. And when the spirit finally gets her hands on her, on Drolta, she basically says some mean words to her, like, "Hey, you're not doing this for me. You're doing this for yourself," or some shit. I wasn't reading. I was just looking at her. I was like looking at this, like, "Oh, this is great." Like, yeah, like, and Drolta was like, "I was doing this for you," and all this shit. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. That's neat." And I don't know if they tried to make it like sentimental or sweet, or trying to go ahead and conjure up some sort of emotion from me or the audience, right? But it's hard to really give a fuck about Drolta, who's doesn't have any redeeming qualities, right? So the spirit of Sekhmet takes the pieces in a really fucking cool scene where Richter goes ahead. What am I even talking about? I'm going way past, right, what I'm talking about. So Drolta gets the pieces taken out of her, and Sekhmet is like, attuning to it in Annette's body, and there's a fear that she might die. And Drolta's like, no, and she tries to fight back, and she stabs Alucard in the fucking heart. I'm like, I said Alucard, didn't I? Alucard, right? I will say that they kind of nerfed my boy, Alucard, and where, like, I'll get to it in a bit. I'm getting too off track, but she does stab him, like, kind of in the heart, I guess. He doesn't die. Don't worry. He doesn't die. But Alucard gives Richter his sword, and he combines his magic onto it to cut Drolta in two, ending the whole conflict as a whole. Right? It was really cool when Richter got the sword and he turned it into like an actual, instead of like a long blade, he turned it into like an actual, like, almost bastard sword. It's really fucking cool. So it's the very end of the show, and everyone's going their separate ways. Richter, Annette, and Edouard, who had his own part to play in the war. It wasn't really a big part. I guess it was just distracting the night creatures and stuff, which is cool. Edouard singing, I'll say, by the way, throughout the entire show, really fucking good. I fucking love his singing. But, they go back to where the two came from. Maria stays back to help the Revolutionary Army, and Olrox turns Mizrak into an official vampire. For the most part, everyone is having a happy ending and doing their own thing. Alucard will stay with Maria to help on her quest. For the most part, this season ended off with a clean break, besides the Mephisto, spirit thing staring at Maria along with Terra. We also got to remember Dracula is still around too, so that's still, like, there's still that loose end. So overall, the season was great. It was great. It did really well with what it built in the first season, right? So I'm not mad at it, right? I enjoyed pretty much every moment of the season, although I will say I can't see why many people don't think this isn't necessarily Castlevania. Don't get me wrong. I love the season. I love it a lot. But I can see where people come from, where they say it isn't Castlevania, it's too different from the original stories, but those stories pretty much pits us against Dracula, like Dracula and some other beings here and there, right? But it's mainly Dracula, so the narrative wouldn't be so good for a show. But I've heard some decent ideas when, confronted with that, with that whole thing, right? Like someone saying, like I talked with them for a good bit in the comments somewhere, that they would have preferred it if the OG series would have been like an overall adventure leading towards Dracula, right? Where each season is basically an adventure to get to him, almost like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure style, like fucking part 3, like going ahead and finding Dio and stuff like that. I mean, like, it's not a bad idea. Like, I fuck with it, right? But it wouldn't have given us that much development for many characters. Like Isaac, like I can see why people may not be a fan of the series due to its inclusion of multiple gods being, I guess real or canon in the world of Castlevania, where the games, from my memory, just had the good old good and bad god soldiers and devils, monsters, and it was just one religion, as the preface, right? That's what I remember. Like I can't, if there's any other mention of gods in the games and stuff besides the big one, the big one. I can see why people will be bothered by by all this, right? I can see why people can be bothered by Annette having so much screen time focusing on different power besides God to defeat evil, or I guess just be a key to the situation at hand. But I found it creative and interesting. Would I have done it if I was if I was writing the show? Probably not. But if someone threw that idea at me in the writer's room, I wouldn't turn it down, but I would want everything to fit nicely, right? Because again, this is like this is Castlevania. There's the whole Christian, Catholic Church, whatever, going on at the time, and it's about devils, and it's very pretty much just like we know like the religious pretense around everything, right? We know what religion is the main focus and the main overarching theme of everything is here in the world of Castlevania. But again, I don't hate the idea of multiple gods being in the world. I think it's pretty interesting. Even my book has multiple gods in the world, but I know a lot of fans, I know a lot of people wouldn't go ahead and necessarily be happy with the idea of multiple gods being included in Castlevania. But again, I fuck with it, and if they don't fuck with it, I can't really argue back. I can't be mad at them. I'm just gonna say I understand. I understand where they come from, but I'm good with it. Honestly, everyone, the antagonists for Nocturne weren't as compelling as Dracula, or as interesting as Death, or the whole fucking Dracula Must Live 4chan group trying to bring him back to life in the last season of the OG series. Like, don't get me wrong, Drolta has a banging character design, voice actor, and she was great all around, but her character was just psychopath, and her origin didn't really make me care about her situation either. She was just selfish. That's all she really was. She just did everything for her god, and there was no redeeming qualities in her as a character. She even Elizabeth, she was just a narcissistic person who was just evil, killing babies and stuff, and thinking that she can rule the world. It was her destiny, which is very fucking cringe. Like, no. Like, even in the weakest season in the OG series, the third one, by the way, that's what I think is the weakest season, had characters who were smaller in comparison to everyone else and a bit more compelling because we knew what they were doing. They're all their motivations was a mixed bag of like good and bad and fucked up, right? Now, what I remember or enjoy from the series, like what I'm saying right now is that what will I remember from the series? I remember the fights. They were beautiful and amazing, and the visuals were fucking sick. Richter and everyone's amazing aura moments was dope as fuck, but overall, there weren't moments that made you cry, that had an emotional, like, crazy and just beauty to them. Like, the scenes didn't have that much beauty to them besides like the visuals. The visuals were beautiful, right? But the scene itself was just there, right? I think that is what this season lacks, or maybe just Nocturne just lacks, right? Sure, Richter and Annette being together was sweet. Tara leaving sucks, of course, but that was really it. Like, nothing truly really happens. Like, maybe like the beginning where Richter's mom got fucking murked by Aurochs, but that was in the beginning. Not a lot of people will remember that. We didn't have any time to really mourn her or anything. Like, nothing was like on the level of Isaac's journey from being a forge master. Yep, I just remembered. Yep, forge master, to being a man teaching the world peace. Nothing was really as beautifully sad as Hector and Lenore's like crazy relationship. Nothing was as painfully sad was the understandable crash out of Dracula going ahead and dooming the world just because of what happened to his wife. There were no twists on human nature like the town mayor, who was revealed to be a child killer. Richter not having a vast amount of knowledge at his disposal, or the fucking Morning Star whip, like, limiting him, was kind of disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of disappointing, but his prowess in becoming a weapon himself made up for it, which is pretty cool. But like, it's like, for me, there needs to be, like, especially in Castlevania, after such a baller ass like series as the OG Castlevania, there needs to be beautiful, like, engaging moments, right? Like, stuff that's beautiful, sad, like, that's just amazing to watch. Like, there's so many scenes in the OG series that I can remember off rip, like Isaac going ahead and fighting I forget her name, the the vampire woman from the trio of women, right? like I can't even speak, the four, right? It was her. It was him talking to the captain. It was him talking to the captain. It was Hector going ahead and talking to Lenore, and like the whole twist where they were having sex and she put the ring on him, like forcing him to be a servant to him. You know, of course, Dracula's whole thing in the beginning of the first season, like that is iconic right there, right? Like no one is ever going to forget that shit, like his crash out. No one's gonna forget like Trevor going against death. No one's gonna forget the whole crazy twist when it came to the mayor. Like it's stuff like that that makes Castlevania so interesting. But in Nocturne, it just felt, I wouldn't say hollow, but maybe I wouldn't even say juvenile. Like I wouldn't even say that. It just felt, it just didn't have that shimmer. It just didn't have that magic of, you know, fucked up, but also understandable, but also cruel, but also like real, right? Like, you know, it's the world, right? That's just how the world is, and in their world, and it's the twists and turns, and like, you know, the flipping between good and bad, and just the interesting ideas and concepts being brought into the scenes, which is really interesting. And I don't think Nocturne really knocked that out of the park. It was very minimal, but overall the entire season was actually really interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not trying to shit on the entire series right now after like giving it praise, right? Because it deserves some praise. It's really good for what it is. But there are some things that I didn't really agree with, like Alucard essentially being nerfed and sidelined to make room for the younger generation to have spotlight. It was kind of annoying. Like, you mean to tell me he cut Drolta in this one scene, but he couldn't in another one? Like, you know, like, come on. Like, it wasn't consistent. You can tell they were really trying to make it its own thing, which I'm not mad at. I'm not mad that they were trying to make it its own thing, like, you know, a unique story. But again, you know, you're testing the bounds of what makes Castlevania, and I think a lot of people will go ahead and not like that, right? Overall, like, you know, I'm not trying to be a thief of joy by comparing the two. I'm not going to add that to my score or anything, but along the first season, this season, to me is an 8.5 out of 10. Like, it's fun, entertaining, made sense with what they were building, and overall it's just a great show. It's just great. I love it so much. To me right now, I love both shows for different reasons. And if I had to pick a show, depending on how I feel, right, I would go ahead and pick the original, because of course it's not really fair. It has 4 fucking seasons, comparing to Nocturne's 2. But at the same time, like, the original first 2 seasons hit so fucking hard, and I think the first 2 seasons of the OG is better than the first 2 seasons of Nocturne, just by a notch, to me, just because of everything I said, that it had all those interesting concepts, like character development, and, you know, all these characters going ahead and doing their thing, right? Yeah, that's that's really it for my little review here. I know it's kind of long. Now, of course, there are people who will not let some of this shit fucking slide and will voice like their concerns on how all this shit isn't okay and stuff like that, which, you know, it's their right. I mean, I'm not going to be mad at them. I understand. Would I change anything about the show? Maybe some minor stuff for me, but I know a lot of people will go ahead and just, you know, scrap the show and start anew and turn it into like basically a carbon copy of the game. So who the fuck knows? The show is good if you're hung up on it not being a full-blown, like, you know, copy and paste adaptation of the games. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to say I understand. Now, yeah, now with my yapping out of the way, my bullshit ass little review, what do you guys see in the future when it comes to this series? Are you going to continue watching it, or are you going to go ahead and, like, tell me what you think of the show, right? I'm just all over the place right now. What do you think of the show? What do you want to see next? Are you or like, do you think like they are going to go ahead and continue on with Richter? If they do, they have to make him like get brainwashed and betray everyone before, you know, trying to freeing some big bad or something. Maybe, probably not Dracula because he's still out in the world, but who the fuck knows? This would make Richter feel so ashamed and give up the family whip and the whole business entirely until Julius in the future picks it back up. Yeah, in the future. Like, will they go ahead and go back to Leon Belmont and show us when Leon vowed to hunt the night along with his family? That could be really interesting too. That could be really fucking cool. But you know, if they do that, I feel like a lot of people are going to, especially if they don't like this season, like these 2 seasons, they might not have any trust with the studio, and they hope they they won't change anything and stuff. Yeah, it's, for me, I'm open to all this. You know, it's pretty cool stuff. Who the hell knows? But I guess in the next coming months or years, we will get our answer, I guess, right? What do you guys think of the show, the series? I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good for what it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. See you guys next time. Stay safe, happy emotionally. I can't even speak right now. I'm like a little bit tired. But yeah, stay safe, happy, and healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. See you guys later. Peace.